Hello, everyone. I am glad to be here. Let me tell you, we all are. Hi, everybody. Hi, Donna. Hi, Lee. We have a very special guest with us, Glendene Grant. We like to consider her our friend, and we've known her for many, many years. We've known of her. She is a wonderful lady, and she's here with a very, very important interview. And we're so honored to have her here. Glendene, we're very honored to have you here. And Glendene Grant is Jessie Foster's mother. Jessie Foster is a missing person. She's been missing for 15 years. We've, like, over the years, I've seen Glendene's work and, shared the posts and tried to get the word out just in my own little world, And in the back of my mind, always knowing that her daughter, Jessie Foster, has been missing. And her full name, Jessica Edith Louise Foster. She's a Canadian woman. She disappeared in the Las Vegas Valley in Nevada in 2006. And on March 24th, 2006 was the last time Glendene heard her own daughter's voice. She was 21 years old at the time of disappearance. She has blonde hair and hazel eyes, and at the time, 5'6", weight 115 pounds. Her date of birth, May 27th, 1984. And we're going to include all that information and how you can get a hold of Glendene Grant or any of the investigators, Gil Alba, private investigator, as well as the North Las Vegas Police Department, and Monica Caison from Q Center for Missing Persons. That's all going to be included in the description. And we'll be sure and share that around because this is so important. And we want to hear from Glendene. So we're all going to just sort of, listen to what Glendene has to say. And this will be a 2-part interview. So this is part 1 today, and it's just running for about 45 minutes today. And the following one might roughly be the same, but that's the next Monday. So we hope that you'll join us for that as well. And we're just going to let Glendene just tell us about Jessie.
Well, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. It is exactly a week today before we hit the 15-year mark of Jessie's disappearance. Like you mentioned, Jessie was born May 27th, 1984. She was actually born in Calgary, but raised in Kamloops. And we lived in the same house from the time Jessie was 3 years old until just a few years ago. I didn't really want to move while she was missing, but you have to. Life goes on. So when Jessie was 3, we moved from Calgary back to Kamloops, which is where I'm from. I have 4 daughters altogether. Jessie's the second oldest. And we just lived right across the street from the elementary school, same one that I actually went to when I was a kid. We lived just 2 blocks away from my parents, which is the same house I grew up in. And even back in the late 80s and the 90s, things were still pretty easy. Kids could come and go. They hung out on the street with all their friends and rode their bikes and roller skated, and I played a lot in the schoolyard across the street, an awful lot. We literally were directly across from the gate, our gate from theirs. And so it was a really nice time for them. They got to explore more. When I was a kid, it was the olden days, I'll say. Just go out, but be home before the street lights came on. Well, with my kids, it was a little more strict. I always needed to know where they were, and I'd like to know who they were with. We always had the kind of open door for all the kids as friends. So at any given time, even if each of my kids only had one friend over, it's 4 extra kids. We put locks on the pantry, to be honest, because there was so many kids there after school. And but I wouldn't have had it any other way. I'm mama to many kids that grew up with my kids. They would spend the night. They'd come over after school. I was also involved with their school somewhat, where there wasn't anything that would go on that we didn't attend. And to tell you the truth, I couldn't even think of an excuse not to go considering how close we were, and sometimes I'd try to get out of things, and it was always Jessie, like, no, mom, you got to go. And when it came to little things like sending money for their lunch program, she would not seal that envelope until she saw specifically that there was enough money in there. If I was running short one week, I would have to put a little bit less in the other girls' envelopes because Jessie she always felt like we were well off. There was no excuse. She always kept me on my toes, definitely. There's a little saying that her stepmom had about Jessie, and because she was, there was no flies on her. And I always say that because it just is so true. Jessie was always on the go, very popular. And my kids were involved in a lot of things, like sports and dance and brownies and, a lot of the things that you could put your kids into where she became greatly involved. She didn't just go and sit there on the outs, on the outskirts. She got very involved. Summer camp every year, and very popular. Jessie was actually invited to go a lot of places with a lot of her friends and a lot of their families because she was a very well-behaved child and teenager. And she went to Mexico when she was 15, and all she had to do was provide her own plane ticket, which she came home one day and said to my husband, her stepdad, Jim, will you, if I, do whatever you say, will you pay for half of my flight to Mexico and I'll pay the other half? And Jim's like, well, that sounds fair. You've got to keep up your chores and, your grades and do all the stuff. Yeah, I'd gladly pay for half of your flight to go to Mexico. So we're expecting that we were going to see some result and then he was going to pay and then she'd go. And so 2 days later, she's like, Jim, you got to go buy my ticket for my flight to Mexico. You got to send them, your credit card number. I can't remember how they did it, but they got to pay for the ticket right away, and we got to all get our seats together. So we've got to do it right away. Jim's like, well, I thought you were paying for half. She's like, well, I am, but they need the money right away, and I haven't got it yet. So Jim's like, okay, Jessie. So he goes and he pays for her flight, and well, I think he's still waiting to be paid back. Oh, she's always thinking that one, right? We always laugh about that. We laugh even with her about it, like, you're such a stinker. We're thinking, he's got all this time, and she already had her little plan and knew exactly, that she was gonna get Jim to pay. And he did, and he didn't mind, She was always such a well-behaved kid. You don't mind doing things, if your child's going to, always follow the rules and do well in school and, have good friends, so we never minded. But, she's funny. Yeah, but Jessie actually lived in Calgary till she was 3, and then we moved here. But then she moved back when she was 16 because her dad and stepmom and family still lived there. And because she didn't remember living in Calgary, she didn't really remember being around her dad a lot, except as she was growing up over holidays and summers, etc. And they would always spend a lot of time with him. So she asked if she could go to Calgary and do grade 11 school. And then if she liked it, she would complete grade 12 there. And if she didn't, she'd come back, and that would give her a chance to graduate with all the kids she went to school with since kindergarten. And so we decided that would be a good idea. She went to Calgary and liked it, so she stayed there and she graduated there. And and actually she was more of a city girl, kind of like I am. I look at Kamloops as a smaller town. My husband looks at it as a city, but I look at it as a smaller town. I think of Calgary as my idea of a city, and she really liked it. She liked the nightlife. She liked going to clubs, and she loved to dance. She loved hip hop, and actually took hip hop dance lessons when she was still in high school. So she always really enjoyed herself when she did things, you know. There's always a group of a lot of girls. There's always lots. Even at grade 7 graduation, there was probably 8 of them that you know are all in a they're clustered together. And when she graduated from high school, it was the same thing. She was with at least 10 or 12 other graduates, and they had the big long limousine, and you know, she's always popular and fun and funny. And what I'm wondering is if you guys had any specific questions though that you would like to ask, because I could literally just go on about everything
Yeah,
with Jessie.
I think it's just wonderful to hear, you know, because I've seen the, you know, the posters over the years, and you know, since I first saw, you know, that Jesse's missing, you know what I mean? But I wanted to hear about Jessie and who she is, and like, you know, as a person, and as you know, we're going to hear all about the
Yeah.
disappearance and the investigation and stuff the next interview. So I thought this one would be just great, just to get to know Jessie, you know, and experience that wonderful daughter that you have. You know, that's
Well, and
awesome.
that's the
Like,
thing too. There was so many different instances where every time I think about what was going on at that specific time, there was always so many other kids with her. She was always surrounded by the, you know, groups of friends, many of them the same friends, obviously, like her closest friends, but there was always other girls that wanted to hang with them. We had a trampoline in the backyard, and that was back when trampolines were still a new thing, and you were the cool family if you had one. Not everybody. Now everybody has them. And you know, so we had lots of friends that would come over. All, you know, my kids' cousins, you know, and all of their friends. And of course, when I have 4 daughters, you know, and a lot of the cousins, and you know, they have friends and they want to go over where the girls are, you know. So it was always fun. You know, we always had like movie nights. We had we had a rack of videos because it was VHS back then. And there was so many movies that you couldn't even imagine. There was so many nights where they were just all cuddled up on the couches. And you know, when you got 2 kids and 2 adults plus extras, you know, we had always had to have 2 couches in our living room. And there's always kids on the floor. It was just, it was wonderful. I could never think back to when my kids were young and when Jessie was, you know, growing up, and you know, from adolescence and teenhood until she moved back to Calgary. You know, it was always such a pleasure to think of it because the kids that were always there, you know, there was, and trust me, I know I've heard of what they did that I didn't know at the time, but during the actual times we were there, they were always very well behaved, and I couldn't complain about anything. And you know, when they told me about some of the stuff they snuck around, even if it was them drinking or sneaking outside to, you know, smoke joints or whatever they might have done as they started getting older, you know, it wasn't anything that was obvious. It was never the neighbors saying your kids were doing this. Jessie never got sent home by the school or in trouble with the principal. She was actually, you know, an honor roll student many, many times over the years. She was on the honor roll. But one of the things I think that if I was to remember most about what Jessie liked to do. She really, well, she went from tomboy to girly girly at about the time that she went from grade 7 elementary school into grade 8. And that's when she started a little bit of eyeshadow and growing her hair longer. But then she started doing hair and makeup, and she could do it on her friends and on herself. And she did it so well, and not heavy, you know, dark caked up makeup, but so subtle and just improving the beauty of her friends and herself. I was so impressed. You know, when she could do hair, she always had different hair colors and hairstyles and, you know, different kinds of braids and you name it. And, you know, she'd change her look so many. And as a matter of fact, just to jump ahead a minute, it was kinda good that she did because it gave us a lot of different looks of Jessie when it did come time to make our posters for her. So we could have long dark hair pulled up, blonde hair, you know, curly hair, wavy hair, straight hair, and, so I was always really glad that she was so inventive in the different looks that she had. But she
Mhm.
would always do her friends' makeup. I even when she wasn't quite sure what she wanted to do for a career, I um, many times suggested to her that she go to school, learn how to do hair, get a license, learn how to do nails, makeup, and do it with a license. And as she decided what her full career was, because she always said she loved doing it, but that's not something she would do for the rest of her life. That could put her
Yeah.
through school if she did. She talked about being a lawyer and she had other thoughts. And I thought, well, you could do that while you went to school to become whatever you choose. And I was
Mhm.
always, you know, kind of, boosting her to do that on a more professional level because she was so good at it. I mean, for myself, this is mom with hair and makeup done, but with Jessie, there's not a picture that you see of
I
her
get it.
where she might have looked like she just crawled out of bed or, was having a bad day. Every picture you see of Jessie is, beautiful.
Mhm.
And I'll also point out that Jessie did wear braces for many years. You can sort of see when she was little and she would smile, and then as she got older, the smile was more with the lips closed because
Mhm.
as she started being more self-aware and not really liking her teeth, she would smile like that. So um, as she got older and she had braces, and then when the braces came off and she had little caps, and then the next thing you know, she's got the teeth and the smile of a movie star. You never saw her without a big toothy grin ever,
Yeah.
and just gorgeous, beautiful, and then those teeth, just you know. And I always remember anywhere we go, that's the one thing she always noticed. I always noticed people's hair because I took a hairdressing course, and she always noticed
Mhm.
people's teeth.
Yeah.
And that's just that's how things are, though, right? When you're a pro.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
funny.
but I sure do miss her. She had a couple of
I bet.
habits that I used to say Jessie when she did them. Now I go, oh, Jessie. Now what? She could belch. Oh my goodness. She could do the alphabet. She could do sentences. And another thing she could do, and
That's a true gift.
it's even worse, is that girl could spit. I don't know how. I try to spit. Okay, this is crude and way off topic, and I end up with the drool down my chin. I cannot. She could. I don't know how she did it, and
This is embarrassing, but I can definitely relate. The burping and the spitting. Yeah.
I just don't know where she learned it
Terrible.
from.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, isn't that funny? And well, here's a little story about Jessie with her belching. When she moved to Calgary, um, MSN Messenger was kind of all the rave back then. So instead of just typing to people, now you could actually have little video chats, and it was new. And she would be on with one of her sisters, and I could be in the kitchen cooking supper, and I could hear Jessie and Katie or whoever she was with Jenny or anybody, just talking. And it was just like she was in the other room with her. And then all of a sudden I'd hear the big belch, right? I'm like, it's like she's in the other room, but she's in Calgary. And this was back, in the year like maybe 2000, 2001. So it was still very young.
Yep.
It's old news now to have that, but oh man, I just, it's making me get teary eyed just thinking, but what a silly thing to get, sentimental over. But that girl had
No, but that's the good stuff, right? Like that's the good stuff. And
yeah, it is.
it really, this just brings, who she is, really to me to life, right?
Yeah.
Because I had no idea. You know what I mean? It
Well,
sounds
because
like
you
she
look
was
at
very.
her pictures and she's this beautiful, pristine looking woman. You'd think she would just be, nope.
Belches is that's awesome. I mean,
Yeah,
it sounds like she had a great sense of humor,
very.
and that while she was growing up. That's probably why she was so popular, because
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
girls, they need people that are not afraid to be themselves, and people actually love that, especially younger people. I think, when you're a teenager, or preteen, and someone's just really sure of themselves, and they
Exactly.
kind of lift everybody else around them.
Yes.
Of course,
Because,
it's like they're a
what is
magnet.
awkward age? It is.
Mhm.
I agree 100% that's so many kids at preteen, early teens, as they're starting to come out of their shell and breaking away from the family core a little bit, and going places without mom, dad, or siblings a little bit more. Um, they don't have a great deal of confidence for the most
Mhm.
part. Many do, but many also don't. And
Mhm.
the one thing that Jessie was, she was very confident, and always never minded. She was never worried about being the first one, to ask a question. She didn't mind if she fell. She'd be the jump up and be laughing the hardest at herself, for stumbling. Um, well, I never mentioned what a great athlete she was. High jump was probably one of her strong suits when it came to track and field. She was on the front page of our newspaper when she
Oh
was
yeah.
in grade 7, her last track meet in elementary school. Yeah, very athletic.
That's
And like I said, she was very into dance too. And that's also not something you can do, unless you have the athletic gene, which I don't. I'm
I
not a,
don't. Let me
I'm
tell
not
you.
athletic. Um,
No, I'm
Yes.
not either. That's
My
awesome.
kids came to ball with us a lot when my kids were all younger. My younger two kids came with us all the time. And the older ones did from time to time. At that point, when you're 15 years old, you don't hang around with mom and stepdad as much as nowadays. And I can't get rid of my kids now. But the two younger ones, they used to love to come with us, and Jessie would come, and it was always so great to have her there cheering us on and just being such a good sport about everything. And just so many things that I just miss so many things about her that it's, again, hard to believe. It's hard to believe it's been 15 years. This is a really weird day for me with it, like I said, about my mom. And then
Right.
next Monday being 15 years for Jessie. But we also have another and this one's fresher. It's like, do you notice how I didn't quite tear up a lot yet about my mom after 23 years and Jessie after 15? Because, you do learn to live with things. But a year ago on the 30th, my my grandson's uncle took his life, and
Oh, I'm sorry.
it's been a hard
Yeah.
year. It's been a very hard
That
year.
is
He was
hard.
way too young, and it was way too unexpected.
Mhm.
And right there, and it
So hard.
compounded, March. My best friend also passed away on March 11th, 5 or 6 years ago now, and I'm just, as long as we can keep all this tragedy in 1 month, I think I'll be okay. But yes, Jared's beautiful soul
It's
has
hard.
yeah, very hard. It was, my grandson took it so hard. Um, Jesse didn't know um my sons-in-laws or their families or anything, because she went missing so many years ago. But
Mhm.
it Jake came into our lives, and I became a grandmother with my other daughter's first child just within the next year after Jesse went missing. So
Mhm.
they've been in our lives ever since, and they've seen our journey through all of it, and they love Jessie as much as everyone else do, even though they didn't know her when she was
Right.
still in Kamloops. And but it definitely it's hard. My grandson, it was his only blood uncle, and he's only got the only aunts he have are on my side, because his dad only had one brother, no sisters. And
Mhm.
so and then seeing the pain in my son-in-law and then my daughter, it's been the way that we've been going through this month is trying to or this year is trying to
help them, guide them through their pain as much as possible. And but we still have Jessie, we still have mom, and those, yeah. But today is
So hard.
about Jessie, but mom's on my heart. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's no wonder, it's these things are hard, and that's a lot to be dealing with, and the emotions that would come with that.
Yeah.
Um, that's just, that's why I say you're incredibly strong to be doing this. You have to be able to to be able to do what you've done. Um, I just find that, like when we were speaking on the phone the other day, and you were saying, hey, I mean, pain is pain. I don't consider myself to be special, but I think you really are. You've helped a lot of people, and your strength is, it is help. It does make a difference. But it's okay
Well,
to cry too,
people say, but
and it's okay.
I hear what you're saying, Lorianne, but I still, again, I don't quite agree with it because um everybody's like, oh, I couldn't do what you're doing, I couldn't do what you're doing, but you know what? Guess what I said 16 years ago? I couldn't do what I'm doing. So how could we know what we're capable of until we're put into that position? And I do
Right.
believe that everybody has that strength, and I do believe that and I just happen to be the kind of person that talks a lot. So when Jessie went missing, it was good that I did talk a lot, and that I wasn't shy to talk in front of people, and that things came
Mhm.
easy to me that way. But just because I can do that, it doesn't mean that a mom who has been shy all her life, or maybe is just a little more quieter than I am, doesn't mean that they don't have the same strength.
Yeah.
We all show our strength in different ways. I
Yeah.
think too,
That's true.
one of the reasons that everything happened the way they did in Jessie's case, it's not that um, I mean, I don't know if I would have made as much of a difference if Jessie went missing today, because of how much everybody knows about human trafficking, and more about missing persons, and all the organizations now. 15 years ago,
Mhm.
there wasn't a lot. 15 years ago, like we had,
Yeah.
let's see if we can get Montel Williams or America's Most Wanted, that kind of thing. There was the Doe Network, and we didn't even have NamUs then, like, so there was so many
Mhm.
things that hadn't happened, and human trafficking was basically, I well, let me put it this way. I kind of felt like people were letting me say what I had to say, were they but they were thinking, well, just let her talk. I'd be crazy too if my kid was missing. But it's not because they're like, oh, we need to learn about this, it's a horrible crime. It's kind of like,
Right.
she's allowed to be crazy, her kid's missing, and now everyone's like, that's not crazy, that's happening, and it's big, and it's huge, and it happens more
Yeah.
than anyone knew. But 15 years ago, the North Las Vegas Police Department, where Jessie went missing, um, when I mentioned human trafficking to the detective on her case, told me that I was mistaken. Human trafficking happened on the Strip. It didn't happen in little old North Las Vegas. So even the cops had no idea back then, and I know for a fact it happened everywhere. And they had Jessie
That's
housed in
right.
Las Vegas, and she is a victim of human trafficking. So I knew that he was wrong. But
Mhm.
that's just differences in how, and this is just how we are now. We know more. We know that human trafficking is
Yeah.
real.
It's definitely evolving. I mean, it's, and this is a good thing, because
Mhm.
seriously, like, I mean, look, I mean, some of the missing person cases. I know Lee Roberts. She's done a lot of work with missing and unidentified through the years, volunteering with not-for-profits and stuff. And I mean, some of those cases are 100 years old. They're
Yeah,
still looking like some of these. They're calling them Jane Doe or whatever, or John Doe,
baby
still unidentified
Joe, Boy in the Box. There's so
from
many.
from 100 years ago. This has been going on for a long, long time, but now
Yeah,
we're talking about it.
now
See,
there's
this is
like a place now. It's called the internet. In a second, everybody can hear about, the latest missing child. Excuse me, an Amber Alert isn't just a flash across the highway. anymore. Now it's, you're getting alerts on your phones, you're getting alerts on your computers, and if you're on Facebook or Twitter or anywhere, you're seeing all the notices, and it's just amazing.
Right.
Just amazing. I know,
Mhm.
like we were going to just talk
It
about
is.
before she went missing today. But one of the things that I did want to kind of make sure that I mention today is that the people that did take Jessie, she did meet in Canada. She did meet them in Calgary before she went missing, before she we knew anything that was going on. And if it's okay, I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about how she met the people that ended up doing all
Yeah,
this.
absolutely.
Um, Now, as I said, Jessie really liked her hip hop, and she would go to a lot of hip hop dances. And she dated a guy who was a disc jockey, and he would actually put on shows all around different venues in Calgary. And she went to lots of them. And at some of these dances, or shows, I'm old, I call them that. At some of these shows, she started meeting different people, and one of the people that she met was now. Am I allowed to say first and last names? Yeah.
Absolutely.
At one of these dances, she met a guy named Donald Vaz, and Donald Vaz befriended Jessie. Even when Jessie and I talked about him prior to all of this, she would just say he's just a friend. He doesn't like me in that way. There's nothing going on. He's got a girlfriend. I've got a boyfriend, and all that. But he did show a lot of interest in Jessie. Now, a couple of things happened that I put together in my own head without Jessie confirming them. But she did tell me one time about how she was at one of these shows, and somebody had a weapon, and the weapon was drawn, and the gun was fired, and all this chaos happened. And it was right around that same time that she had mentioned Donald. And and then because of everything that happened, I've always assumed that Donald was the person with the gun at that show. Now, I was scared to death that Jessie was anywhere that a weapon was discharged. She
Yeah,
was
no kidding.
she was 20 years old. She thought it was nobody was hurt. She thought it was neat or something or cool. I don't know what she thought, but didn't frighten her away from going, didn't frighten her away from the person. It didn't, nothing, made her not want to go again or meet this guy again. And so shortly after that, Jessie came back to Kamloops, and she put all of her stuff in storage because she was coming back to Kamloops for a little bit of an extended visit. And so all of her stuff was in a storage unit in Calgary, and she came here. And um, so this is again why I'm connecting him to all this. Shortly after she was here, she starts getting phone calls from this Donald Vaz, and he's asking her if she would like to go on a trip. But I always go trip because it was a free trip, and it was a trip down to Florida. And he was going to pay, and it was going to be, oh, we'll go visit my mom down in Florida, and I'll pay, and I just don't want to go alone. And I'm telling her, nothing's free, and what does he want? And he obviously likes you in some way, and he wants to be with you or something. And so, she's telling me, Mom, it's okay. And so she went. She was 20 years old. I couldn't stop her from going. And
Yeah.
so she went, and she came back, and she had pictures of the most funnest looking trip. All the things that you would do if you were in Florida and on the Keys and in Fort Lauderdale and all around. And so I'm like, okay, I overreacted. And so Jessie ended up getting 2 jobs in Kamloops. One was a server at a very exclusive golf course, and one was a server at Boston Pizza. And so then she was invited to go on another trip, and I'm telling her, well, you can't, you just got jobs, you can't go. Oh, I won't be long. I'm going to go. This time he wants to take me to Atlantic City. And again, it's free. And so she goes, and the night before they were supposed to come home, I get a phone call from Jessie, And she's not upset and she's not mad. She's just matter of fact telling me that Donald had just made the horrible suggestion to her that he had lost all the money. Like I said, they went to Atlantic City. They went gambling. He lost all of his money, and now they had to go home the next day. They didn't have any money for food or anything. And so, how would you like to turn a quick trick and prostitute yourself and get us some money for our trip home? And Jessie got all offended and went down into the lobby of the hotel. And the hotel was actually in Manhattan. And went down to the lobby, which is where she phoned me from. And now I am absolutely beside myself. I'm freaking out. He's gonna try to prostitute her. And so she's trying to now, she's probably wishing she hadn't called me, because I'm saying, you gotta get another room, you gotta do the. And she's like, no, Mom, I'm just gonna go back up to the room. We're leaving in the morning. Everything will be fine. I'm not afraid of him. He's just being an asshole. I'm not afraid of him. So we hung up and she went back up to the room with a guy who wants to pimp out my daughter. I didn't sleep much. Anyways, the next morning she called me and she says she's all excited and all happy. And, oh, Mom, we're going to Las Vegas. And I said, no, what do you mean you're going to Las Vegas? You're coming home. No, we're going to Las Vegas and everything's fine and not to worry. And oh my God, I'm thinking Las Vegas is, Sin City. And so now I am absolutely freaking. I said to her, call me the moment you land. And she did. And the moment she landed in Las Vegas, well, the day it was actually May 13th, 2005. And it was 2 weeks exactly before Jessie's 21st birthday, which was May 27th. And 21, legal age, Las Vegas. She's like, Mom, I'm going to stay until my birthday. And then that's it. I mean, everything from there is almost like it was written in stone. There was no turning back. There was no getting Jessie back. There was no, changing anybody's mind. It's like they had everything already planned. And it was almost like a movie, like here, meet a guy, here's your boyfriend, he turns out to be a pimp. It was just like a horrible movie. And we did see her one more time after she went there. She did come home several months later for Christmas of 2005, but it was a short-lived visit. It was a sudden departure to go back to Las Vegas, and we never saw her again. And we talked to her every day until the night of March 28, 2006, and then we never heard from her again. 15 years ago, next Monday. And I mean, of course, we're going to talk a lot about that next week. But it's everything that you would see in a movie. It's everything that some exciting script would be written about, and that's why it was so easy to suck her and so many other young women in. They make it the most exciting, the most brilliant, the most fun thing they've ever done.
Yeah.
There's several ways they do it. If a girl is a drug addict, they just give her drugs. If she's poor, they just give her money.
Yeah.
But for Jessie, she was neither poor nor on drugs, so she was love bombed, and that means that they gave her a pimp to fall in love with. And the term is an actual term, and it's called love bombing. And Jessie thought that this guy fell in love with her just like she did him. She felt like they were going to get married, and that was it. There was just no getting her back after that. And when she did try to leave, she went missing. And it's almost what I thought Jessie's case was one in a million cases. Like, how could this happen? And now I know she is one of millions of cases.
Yeah.
She's not unique. Her case is not one in a million. Her case is constant.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
and that's a sad story.
It is. It's actually really, it's just so heartbreaking. And the thing is like I for it's like there was, you couldn't just, as a mother, drag her back. She's an adult woman.
Yeah.
At that point, she can make her decisions, right? It's not like when you have, if you have a child who's 14, 15, you have parental control and you can say, look, no, sorry, you're coming home with me. When you have someone, a daughter who's 20, 21, or a son who's 20, 21, they're adults. They can do whatever they want.
Exactly.
You're just hoping and praying that they truly know what they're getting themselves into. And this happens. It happens all the time. You're right, Glendene. We see
There's
the
a case
headlines.
that happened, and I gotta because we still have a few more minutes. I'm gonna tell you how I do know it happens all the time. Is because when Jessie went missing, I heard about another case from the year prior. A young woman went missing May 5th, 2005, and as you know, that's just days before Jessie was taken there. If I showed you a picture of Lindsay Marie Harris, you would know it's not Jessie. But if I was to tell you she was, 5'7", 115 pounds, blonde hair, you might think I was describing Jessie. And she went missing, and she was found deceased. She was identified 3 years later. She was found 3 weeks later in Illinois, halfway across the country from where she went missing in Henderson, Nevada. But she was also taken. She was taken to Las Vegas from New York, and she was forced into prostitution by a pimp who she thought was her boyfriend, and her parents thought was her boyfriend. And when she finally started getting strong, she went missing. And unfortunately for everybody, Lindsay was murdered, and which is what a lot of people think happened to Jessie. I won't go there yet. Just like Lindsay's mom, needed to have proof. She believed it happened, but needed the proof. But it's just something that the stories are just too much alike, and they've been connected in the news since Jessie went missing. There was an article in the Las Vegas Sun, something like mutual fears when their daughters go missing or something, and they were speaking of Jessie and Lindsay's stories. And this was back in 2006.
Yeah. It's just, people, for anybody listening to this, this is something that is just, it's happening right under everybody's noses. And seriously, share the posts, take a look at the pictures, take a look at the photos, take a look at the people, the perpetrators, and see who these people, you may know something, you may know somebody, you may know something that you didn't even know that you knew that is part of that's going to be the key to the case. So that's why it's so important for everybody to just take a look and and share Jessie's story, and she's out there somewhere, right? And I'm praying and hoping that she's alive, but she's still out there somewhere, right? So
well, I figure it's a lot harder to hide somebody who's alive than it is, because whenever somebody, especially in Las Vegas, bodies turn up in the desert often, and if she's alive, they keep moving her, right? So
well, this is it, and it's just awful. I'm from New Mexico, and Albuquerque, New Mexico, and that's a huge crime-ridden. Nothing against New Mexico. I love New Mexico, but the issue is Albuquerque, Phoenix, Las Vegas, Nevada, LA is all connected with human trafficking, guns, drugs, and people go through there like you wouldn't believe. So this is the thing.
That's right. And the thing about Albuquerque too, and the Mesa, and all those women whose bodies were found buried there, they were all, many of them chose prostitution to feed a drug habit or to feed their children. But many of the women who were victims were, they were pimped out, they were trafficked.
I saw that article and I was just like, oh, I couldn't. Well, it's not that I couldn't believe it, because I know it's true. This stuff is happening, and but they, I know that we have to it's been about 45 minutes, so I know we have to kind
Yes.
of cut it
Yeah.
short.
Well, I just was going to mention too, Jesse's DNA was sent down there when they were trying to identify all those remains, and and I am obviously happy to say that she was excluded, but and that's what happens. It's not the first, and it won't be the last time that her DNA gets
Yeah.
sent.
Right, right. It's an ongoing investigation. That's right.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming to joining us here, Glendene. We really are so happy that you spent this time with us. I'll speak for all of us because we love Jessie. We absolutely do. And I knew about you, and I knew about Jessie for a long, long time. Not probably since 2006, but roughly 2009,
Yeah.
2010 is when I started to see the information out there. And my heart is with you. My heart's with Jessie, and I'm praying that she's actually found alive and safe, and that's what I'm praying for. And because that would be the best outcome, right? So
Yeah.
of course, but so many
Sometimes
people love
I hear
Jessie.
her saying, "Mom, I can't believe everybody in the world knows who I am."
Well, she's so beautiful, and like when you just see her picture, who couldn't love her?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like who couldn't? What a
Yeah.
beautiful daughter. And like I said, my heart goes out to you. And thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. We're going to put this everywhere. It's going to go all over the place. And I hope that every single person that listens to this be brave and share it. You know what I mean? So many times people are afraid to share this type of information because they think, well, what are people going to think if I share something like this? You know what? Doesn't matter what people think. Just share it anyway, right? And get this information out there, right? And then, contact me and be sure and show up for the next one too, because we're going to have some very, very, very important information about the disappearance and what Glendene's been doing with Jessie's Law and a whole bunch of other stuff that's come of this, right? So join us here again next Monday, same time, same place, right?
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody, and I wish you a really good day. And I know
Thank
it's a hard day for you, but my heart, my prayers are with you. Absolutely. Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay.